We know a bit about that, but actually food waste further up the value chain, I think we don't know much about it. And probably, when you want to be a researcher, the thing to do is publish the first, but we don't know what policies are effective in reducing waste. In developed countries, we don't know. And if those policies transfer to developing countries, we don't know. So on the waste part of smart consumption, we actually don't know a lot. A lot of evidence gaps rather than evidence. So we talk about evidence gaps and evidence, and here I think there's evidence gaps that need to be filled. It's part of the food security agenda because we're running out of food, and waste is often an opportunity to obtain more food. The second one is on eating smartly. Can't read the titles properly. So this actually is quite a thing now in the UK. This is a new cookbook that came out just earlier this year, and in this cookbook it has the evidence pyramid, familiar to us that work in systematic reviews and evidence, with randomised controlled trials, of course clinical trials here, one at the top, and systematic reviews at the top. And so this is actually a cookbook. It's a very nice cookbook, I have it. Very nice cookbook that tells you how to prepare your fruit and vegetables in order to actually get more vitamins out of them. So for example, if you have mushrooms, I'm very fond of mushrooms, put them in sunlight for an hour, you get 6 times the amount of vitamin D from those mushrooms than if you just take them straight from the fridge or the cupboard. If you're going to use turmeric, common in spicy Indian food, there's a lot of immunity reinforcing properties in turmeric. It's not bioavailable, your body won't absorb it, unless you add black pepper. Broccoli has lots of good minerals in them, your body can't absorb them unless you add mustard. So lots of tricks like this in this book, eating smartly, okay? And I'm saying this is something you want to tell African populations, but there are things we know, and a common one in developed countries is don't eat refined products, eat brown bread, not white bread, eat brown rice, not white rice, and so on. Refining products means taking the goodness out of them. And peeling vegetables means taking the goodness out of them. When people eat potatoes or yams, whatever, and throw away the skin, they're throwing away all the minerals. Okay? We all know this. Well, you should know this really. You should know all this. But people actually don't eat smartly. So actually identifying, given the diets that your populations have, what does eating smartly mean for your population? And this should be, as James Wong says, be evidence-based, based on systematic reviews about what we know about how you should best prepare food to maximise nutritional intake from that food. This is serious. Once you get over food deficiency, just you're hungry, then micronutrient deficiency is the big thing. Micronutrient deficiency is a huge issue in child development. And so tackling this so children can actually have sufficient nutrients during the early years is really crucial. And you can greatly increase the availability of micronutrients just by eating smartly. The problem is how to eat smart eating. Because this book is about this book I just mentioned is about how to prepare fruit and vegetables. People aren't eating fruit and vegetables. So I mentioned that in the morning. It's true in developed countries, it will get more and more true in urban populations. In developing countries, they eat a carbohydrate and they go for a protein source, meat if possible, but something nut-based or pulse-based. And the actual green vegetables, for example, having green vegetable every meal, which in a lot of sectors is public health messaging is generally very ineffective. Telling people, do this, it's good for you, doesn't work. You eat 5 pieces of fresh fruit and vegetables a day, take more exercise, don't smoke, drink less, practice safe sex, yeah, right, whatever. Okay? People don't do the things that they're told to do just because they're told it's good for them. So in developed countries where we've seen huge decreases in, say, smoking, it came about because of increased taxation, restriction on advertising, as well as a general change in cultural attitudes that took 20 to 30 years to achieve, to have banning of smoking internally, banning of smoking in public places, banning smoking outside now in many countries. But that took a long time to make that to be possible. If in the 1970s you'd said, let's ban smoking in restaurants, it would never have happened. But it became possible in the last 5 to 10 years for that to become possible. So people are slow to adopt changes if benefits not readily apparent. So put my mushrooms in the sun for an hour before I cook them, 6 times vitamin D. I can't see that. And actually the health benefits of that would be realised over with in the area of water treatment. So point of use water treatment reduces child diarrhoea by 40 to 60%. Many systematic reviews show that. So there's things like chlorination, filtration, boiling. People don't do it. And it's because the reduction of child diarrhoea by 40 to 60%. So child diarrhoea prevalence is 15-20%. So it becomes 10% instead. People don't really see that benefit. And having to boil your water or filter your water or chlorinate your water, which tastes horrible then, these are things that people just couldn't be bothered. I remember when I had my first child many years ago, I was told by the helpers in the antenatal classes, "Oh, make sure every time you change for child's nappy to wash your hands afterwards." And I said, yes, of course I'm going to do that. After like the second week, you're like, whatever. You don't practice good health behaviour. I do now as I worked on wash, I know how important it is. But back then when I had my first child, yes, quite important. And dietary preferences are very sticky. You want to promote smart eating, you want to tell, eat the potato with the peel on. Try telling my own children that, try telling my parents that. And people have, in developed countries, a practice of peeling vegetables before they eat them. Bad practice. We're going to change them. They somehow think there's something wrong with that. Oh, it's dirty to eat the peel. So you need to bring about a big culture shift, like we did with tobacco. And you're starting to see in developed countries now, but just in the last year or two, really, sugar is the new tobacco. So a huge increase in obesity, huge increase in diabetes, sugar is the root cause. The sugar industry, and this is now being well documented, the sugar industry has been funding research over the last 3 decades to convince us that fats are the evil. It's fats that make people fat, which will make sense, but actually it's sugar that is the larger driver of being obesity and diabetes. They've been actually suppressing research that shows how bad sugar is. People like Coke and Pepsi promoting the idea, okay to drink Coke and Pepsi as long as you exercise, it's like a sports drink. It simply is not true. So there is a trend now to start to tackle the sugar industry in the same way as the tobacco industry was tackled. But that will need a culture shift, and people think it's not okay to have a so-called fat-free yogurt that has 13 spoons of sugar in it. Yeah, yogurt's bad, and it has no sugar in it. But we need evidence of what works in trying to promote smart eating, and we don't have it. And in developing countries, we do have programs giving nutritional advice. One of my best known impact evaluations is a nutritional program in Bangladesh, which takes evidence around what works in changing dietary practices. And it's part of the food security agenda. So you need to get all the micronutrients you can out of the food you eat and avoid bad food habits. But the top of the diagram I had was increasing yields of nutritional content. So this is the area where actually I think a lot of you know a lot more than I do. But what I do have here is a heuristic device I call the funnel of attrition, which there's a bigger version coming up, which is basically we go into projects. If you're a project manager or policy maker, you go into a project with unrealistic expectations